Welcome back, Aspire listeners, to a bonus episode called The Failure Files. And I'm going to talk a little bit about where this idea came from and what you're going to see from these bonus episodes moving forward. But before I dive into what this episode's all about, I'd love to share just a few announcements. I'm going to be at Education 2.0 Conference in Las Vegas, December 19th through the 21st with the Teach Better team. So if you're going to be at that conference, I'd love to connect with you while you're there. In addition, I've got a wonderful holiday bundle with EduMatch Publishing going on right now, and you can get two great books for one awesome price. Mike Earnshaw and I have our two books, so that's the Educational Cookbook and Aspire to Lead, together packaged for $30, and you can go to edumatchpublishing.com. Go to their shop, and you'll see right away that there's a holiday bundle that you can pick up during this wonderful season. As I record this episode, I am drinking my favorite coffee, Papa Rob's Coffee, who is the official sponsor of the Aspire to Lead podcast. And if you're looking for delicious coffee, make sure you go to paparobscoffee.com. Use the coupon code ASPIRE15 for 15% off your order and grab some amazing coffee. You can grab a holiday bundle, or if you want to share this as a gift, you can find a subscription that you can give to someone else, again, for this special time. All right, let's jump into the failure files. Welcome back, everyone, to Aspire to Lead, where we will be discussing the visions, inspirations, and experiences from top educational leaders. My name is Joshua Stamper, and you can connect with me on Twitter or on Instagram at Joshua_Stamper. So on this Aspire to Lead Failure Files episode, we've got the wonderful Dr. Bryan Zwemke on with his story on failure, and the premise behind these bonus episodes is really to get after certain events and experiences that our leaders have gone through where they felt like they really didn't learn the lesson unless they missed the mark really, really bad. So I feel like on this podcast, we talk about a lot of the successes and things that have gone well, the resources and all the wonderful stories of where they've gone over their leadership journey. And we get to really see the complete version of this leader in the episodes in our conversations, which is wonderful. These are steps that all aspiring and current leaders can use moving forward. However, I really wanted to get after some of these stories of people going through something that didn't work the way that they thought. And these stories are about how, based on the experience they went through, that was the greatest learning journey for them. Whereas if they got success, they wouldn't have learned the same lesson. So Bryan Zwemke here is going to share a little story, and then I'll have some reflection on the back end. And I hope you enjoyed this bonus episode and the first one of Failure Files.
Yeah, so really early in my career, and I started just after 6 years of teaching, which could have been a mistake in itself. I started as a dean of students, and I was young. I was 28 years old, and I was ready to change things around, and I was trying to be, restorative before I really even knew what restorative probably meant. And I worked with a group of teachers who did some really just like basic after-school detention, and they would sit there. And the kids just time after time, they would just come in there and they would sit there. And then Saturday school, they would sit there. And it really felt to me like this is punitive, and it's not making the difference. And I look back on this, years and years and years later. So I said, well, I could figure this out. So, I took all of my character counts DVDs and I put together all my resources. And I said, well, here's what we're going to do. Here's the curriculum that we're going to use. And I laid it all out and I said, whoever's doing this, supervision, this is what we're doing. And I think the thing that I remember the most of that is, while that might have been the right work, I did the work by myself. And I didn't bring in the folks that I needed to bring into it, the people that had the history, that had the value system that I could have tapped into. And I think back on that leadership experience all those years ago, and I try to remember the fact that you might have a great idea, but if you have that idea in isolation alone, you're not going to be able to be as strong as you are if you take your time, think about the why, and then bring people together around the table to build their own capacity to learn a little bit about what they want to do, and then ultimately make the difference that you wanted to make in the first place.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. You can find out more at teachbetter.com/podcasts. Now let's get back to the episode.
I have the pleasure of working with Bryan Zwemke each Tuesday morning with the Teach Better team as far as the admin mastermind. If you're looking for a support group, we are available to you every Tuesday morning, and you can go to teachbetter.com/mastermind and find the way to sign up to get that Zoom link. And yeah, we just love that time to really work on a lot of different topics with our administrators. And Bryan just provides some wonderful reflection in this story, and one that resonates a lot with me. I struggled quite a bit with bringing folks into the decision-making and planning process. And early in my administrative career, it was often where I had an idea, I thought it was creative, and I didn't really ask for feedback or for those to collaborate with me. I just kind of went on my own and tried to solve the problem instead of really making it a group effort. So one of the problems on my campus that year was truancy. We had a lot of students absent and missing, and the teachers were really frustrated. I was really frustrated because what we had in our discipline matrix was not working, and I was going to court every week trying to solve this issue. And so what I did was I just made the change. I went into the matrix, started tinkering around with some different ideas, tried to look at some restorative practices, and what was going on was I didn't communicate with my building and my other campus leaders about the shifts and the changes that I was making, and what was being perceived was that I was not doing anything with truancy, and that was far from the truth. These were a couple things that I brought the group together. So I had a meeting with my leadership team, and this was what occurred. We, identified and agreed on the problem together. What I realized very quickly was the problem I saw was very different, or described different by myself than everyone else. They had a perception that it was not being addressed at all. So I had to share a little more context in the plan that I had so that we could identify that this problem existed and this is the reason behind it. And so once we all were on board with what the problem was, then we went into a collaboration activity where we all got to go around, talk through each of the problems we thought existed with truancy, and then just some creative plans or ideas on how to address it. And once we kind of had this brainstorming session, we were then able to agree upon a plan of action and next steps. With that, did we solve the problem immediately? Of course not. This was a giant campus-wide issue, but based on the collaboration that occurred, and based on the opportunity to build a solution together, everyone felt like they had ownership in the decision-making process. All right, so if you have a failure story that you want shared on the Aspire to Lead podcast, I want you to either record yourself, maybe a couple minutes of that story and what you learned from it, or if you don't feel comfortable with your own voice and your recording, you can write it out. Send it to me via email at joshua@teachbetter.com, and I'll just read it on the episode. So I'm looking for folks to share out their experiences of mistakes and failures and how you learn through that. So feel free to reach out to me. Again, my email, joshua@teachbetter.com. You can send me a link to the MP3, or if you want to just write out your experience and your story, I would absolutely love to share that with all the listeners. So this Saturday, I'm going to have a wonderful episode available to you with Frederick Busby, and he is a podcaster, a leader, and a huge resource for those who are aspiring leaders and current leaders in the assistant principal role. So tune in, and if you need any support, of course, reach out, Joshua_Stamper, or at my email, joshua@teachbetter.com. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your week.